Welcome to the latest episode of the B Movie Club. I'm your host, Kevin. This week we'll be discussing the 1985 comedy classic, Once Bitten, starring Jim Carrey, Lauren Hutton. The list goes on and on. For those of you joining us for the first time, each week on the B Movie Club, I discuss certain guilty pleasures and forgotten classics. Things that we remember watching in the good old days, but maybe haven't watched lately because they weren't that good to begin with. You can reach me on our page on Facebook, Original B Movie Club. Give me the big thumbs up. You can also go to our page on YouTube, Kevin D, that's me. Click subscribe. It's totally free. You can also reach me on Twitter at KD9575. Be sure to send me any favorite scenes, favorite quotes, any movie suggestions, any comments, any questions, anything else you want to get off your chest. Don't forget to spread the word, let all your homies know, let friends know, enemies, acquaintances, and strangers. Let them all know, the more the merrier. Once Bitten. In this movie, you've got Mark Kendall, who's a high school student. He's having some issues with his girlfriend. Evidently, they've been dating a while. And, when you're a teenager and you've been dating a while, there's certain urges, if you know what I'm saying. She's a good girl, though. She says, you know what, when the time is right, but I just don't feel this is the right time, so they're having some kind of issues. So Mark's buddies decide, because he's having these issues, they should go into the city, go down into downtown LA, hit Hollywood, and go to some clubs out there, evidently. And while they're there, they go to this crazy, it's kind of a singles bar thing where there are telephones, all the thing on the tables, and if you see somebody you like, you give them a little jingle. While he's there, Mark meets this alluring older woman. The audience knows that she's a vampire who's like 400 years old. She lives up in the hills, and to keep herself young and beautiful, she has to drink the blood of a virgin male, essentially. Take 3 drinks, and then she'll retain her, her youth and vitality and her beauty. But if she does that, the virgin will become a vampire. And she's done it many times over history. She's surrounded by a bunch of these younger vampires from the past who are now kind of her servants. She also has her faithful assistant, Sebastian. We don't know if he's a vampire or not. We don't know what the story is. He seems to take care of her. So she's got her eye on Mark. She leads him back to her place. So Mark's a good guy. He's got a girlfriend, but for some reason he's going off with the older seductress back to her mansion. Hey, we don't judge, whatever. When we get there, she proceeds biting the buttons off his shirt and bites him down on his thigh. We hope it's his thigh. Smash cut to the next day. He has no recollection of anything happening. He assumes he had carnal relations with this lady. He goes back and tells his buddies. His girlfriend overhears. She's upset with him, so now he's got this whole other issue to deal with. He realizes he's in love with his girlfriend. He wants to be with her. But now that the vampire woman has bit him, he's kind of under her thrall as well. So it's important for her to bite this guy because evidently, it being LA, there aren't that many virgins running around. They're a rare commodity, evidently. So it's kind of the tug of war, if you will, the push and the pull of Mark in the middle with his young, pretty girlfriend and the older, attractive vampire woman who he's starting to realize is the vampire. He's going through some changes. He's wearing all black all the time. His skin looks kind of pale. He's starting to slick his hair back. I don't know what that means, but that's a vampire thing, I guess. Eventually, he notices his reflection is starting to disappear. His girlfriend gets suspicious. She starts thinking he's a vampire as well because she went to some occult bookstore and the bookstore owner gave her the lowdown. And he said the way to tell is to look for the two sores on his inner thigh. So she goes to Mark's buddies and has them check him out in the locker room. Okay, so there's an interesting scene where they're showering after PE, and then there's some grabbing and looking and all sorts of good stuff, I guess. I don't want to spoil everything, okay? Needless to say, however, spoiler alert, things work out well for Mark and his pretty girlfriend. So there you have it. What can I tell you about this movie? It came out in 1985, starring Jim Carrey. He plays, of course, Mark. This was actually his 7th movie in 1985, but it was his first lead role. Okay, he'd done other lead things that were straight B-movie quality things. Hey, this is his first lead role in kind of a Hollywood type feature film. So there you have it. Obviously, he went from this to he did like Peggy Sue Got Married, did a small role in that Clint Eastwood Dirty Harry movie, The Deadpool. Obviously, Jim Carrey had been a comedian prior to this. He'd made a name for himself. He'd been on like The Tonight Show and things like that. But he obviously didn't attain much greater success until he was on In Living Color and then did Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, which was his big star-making role. But, you know, it's funny to go back and see him back in '85 playing the high school student. And, you know, he's kind of playing a straight character. He's not kind of zany and wacky, although they try to give him a couple moments to show what he can do. He did a lot of impressions back in the day. Lauren Hutton, who plays the sexy, alluring vampire woman, we know her. She was a famous model of the 60s and the 70s. By the 80s, she started to do more movies. Prior to this, she was in American Gigolo as the sexy, attractive older lady in that movie as well. The rest of the cast, they're people you might recognize, but I wouldn't count on it. Although Cleavon Little plays the vampire's assistant Sebastian. You remember him from Blazing Saddles. So that's kind of an interesting little thing there as well. One scene I particularly like in this movie is there's the school dance. Mark has already been bitten a few times, so he's looking kind of vampire-y, which I don't know if that's a word or not. It's a Halloween costume ball, so everyone's kind of dressed up. They were supposed to go, him and his girlfriend were supposed to go to the dance as Jack and Jill. She goes as Jill. He goes as guy wearing all black, who everyone is convinced is a vampire, but he's like, no, I'm just wearing my regular clothes. Good times. So they're at the dance, dancing, and of course the seductress vampire woman swoops in, and there's this elaborate dance number where it's like the dance floor clears, and then it's, you know, he's dancing with his sweet little girlfriend. She swoops in and tries to pull him away and dance with him, and then the girlfriend pulls him back, and there's this long choreographed scene where they're all, it's like from Beat It, where everybody's beat it and they're dancing, but it's really a knife fight. It's that kind of thing. And I don't know if we're supposed to look at this and go, oh yeah, that's what would happen. You know, here's the, it's a love triangle where the girlfriend is dancing and sees the seductress who's basically trying to steal her boyfriend, and they decide to have a dance-off. Okay, whatever, I guess, you know, if only wars could be solved so easily, I guess, right? Good times had by all. Originally, they wanted Michael J. Fox to play this role of Mark Kendall. Michael J. Fox obviously had already been on Family Ties, but the producer, Samuel J. Goldwyn, actually didn't think Fox could carry a movie. He didn't think he had the, whatever, star power, the gravitas. Of course, he was proved wrong soon after. Back to the Future came out after this. And it seems kind of weird. Here's a TV star, and here's kind of a relatively unknown comedian, actor, whatever's clever. Morgan Fairchild, who was big in the 80s, was offered the role of the seductress vampire, and she turned it down. So they went with lovely Lauren Hutton. It's funny, in the 80s, there's a lot of basically the lower budget movies. They couldn't afford to pay for like the famous songs, you know what I mean, that were all over the airwaves. So they kind of make up their own kind of pop songs. So throughout this movie, there's a lot of kind of the background pop music which it's like I've never heard any of these songs before, but that's what you do when you're in the 80s and you got to have some kind of pop music in the background, I guess. Sad, but true. So there you have it. What else can I tell you about this movie? There's another kind of funny scene in this movie where Mark goes to a church, tries to go to confession because of going off with the beautiful vampire woman, and now he's going through changes. For some bizarre reason, there's an old hobo in the in the church taking a nap or doing something, and he goes into the confessional as well. So Mark thinks he's talking to a priest, when it's clear he's talking to an old drunken hobo. And so he confesses all his sins, and there was supposed to be a line in there that says, "Hey, could you pass me some toilet paper? My stall is all out." Something along those lines. Basically revealing to Mark that he's not talking to the priest, and basically revealing that the crazy old hobo thinks that the confessional stall is actually a bathroom stall. The producers decided to get rid of that because they did not want to offend the Catholic Church. I'm not sure how offended they would be, other than to say, like, why is there an old crazy hobo sleeping in the church? I don't know. You know, it would have been better than what they wound up with, in my humble opinion. This movie is still streaming instantly on Netflix. It's one of those movies where it's like maybe you forgot this was Jim Carrey in it because, again, he wasn't a huge star. It's a comedy through and through. I mean, you see Once Bitten, it's about vampires. There's really no moment where you're like, oh, this is terrifying. It's really not that bawdy or raunchy or anything else, even though it deals with these kind of like, you know, she's biting the buttons off his shirt. There's really, it's pretty tame by today's standards. Another scene that I found that was kind of humorous is during the climactic chase scene at the end of the movie where all the vampires are chasing Mark and his girlfriend through the mansion. There are plenty of scenes where it's like the vampires are smashing through brick walls and through concrete to get at them. And then on like a couple occasions, Mark would like close a door and lock it, and the vampires would look at it and go, well, we can't go through this way. So you can smash through bricks and concrete, but not through a wooden door. Okay, good times had by all. I enjoyed it. Like I said, it's very light. It has a few chuckles over the course of the movie. It's not something that you're going to be rolling on the floor telling your friends about, but it's fun. That's all you can ask for. Okay, it was fun. Like I said, it is still streaming instantly on Netflix, so if you haven't seen it, check it out. Let me know what you think. It currently holds a 10% rotten on Rotten Tomatoes. I just don't know how you could give it that low of a score. I mean, it obviously didn't win any Academy Awards or anything. But it does the job. You know, everybody's, you know, there really isn't that much at stake. I mean, obviously, at one point, they're like, we're going to turn Mark into a vampire. But by the end, everything works out. Nobody's, even though the plans are foiled, the evil vampire woman, nothing really even bad happens to her. You know, everything's cool. You know, no worries. So check it out. Let me know what you're thinking. Next week, I'm going back to the actual true horror genre. Kind of a forgotten classic, April Fool's Day. Another one of those slasher films based upon a national holiday or something. I don't know. It is streaming instantly on Netflix, so let me know what you're thinking. You can reach me on our page on Facebook, Original B Movie Club. You can also reach me on our page on YouTube. And don't forget to tweet me on Twitter at KD9575. As you know, I end every episode with a totally out of context quote. And here it is. I'm the owner of the pants you've been trying to get into these last 4 years. So there it is. Thank you for joining us. Next week, April Fool's Day. Be well.